Welcome everybody, folks who are here. Sorry, I've been really my oh boy, hit the mic. My scheduling has been very slapdash this week. I just find myself constantly under a scramble trying to recover. If sometimes it feels like I'm digging myself out of a hole only to find myself in a deeper hole. Maybe I can stop the streak. I don't have any other particular programming notes. I was just looking for stuff. I still have some OSR June Jam stuff I want to cover. There's some other things, but it was just the time crunch and then also trying to just get myself settled. I thought, let me pick something I kind of have at the ready. I went with Mork Borg Heretic, which I will pull up right now. There we go. This is a zine collection of, I think, community driven. I'm not sure how, this is from, and this is what I picked up from drive-through in terms of the product description, or from Free League, I guess, via drive-through, in terms of what, I don't know what that means in particular, community driven. I don't know if they had an open call for submissions or how they did it, but we're looking at a bunch of, I guess, smaller or maybe bite-sized adventures or some things. I don't know. We're going to find out. I know there are a bunch of bullet points on the drive-through RPG page. But I didn't read all of those because I intend to read through here. I'm not sure if I'm going to get through everything. Might skip over something, zoom over some things. We'll see how it goes. But Isabad's Sanctum says, Mork Borg will deliver. It will definitely deliver. And of course, I love the art. When we went over Mork Borg the first time, I know one of the challenges was sometimes reading the layout or getting past the layout to the content. We'll see if that challenge persists. I know some folks, how they feel about that. You know, some folks I think feel more strongly anti or for that. I mean, I ultimately love these in a design sense, but then there's that other part of me that thinks that, well, if I was going to use this, or if I was using this as a resource after the first or second time, I kind of would love to have just a plain version. It's like, okay, this is great. Lay it on my role-playing game coffee table. People can go, ooh, ah, and check out all the funkiness. But then when I'm in the middle of a session, I'm trying to find something, that funkiness can work against it. Ryan Smith says, supplement? I believe this is a supplement, Ryan Smith, yeah. And the thing is I did try to flip through to find if there was some kind of, like back of the book kind of write-up, and I couldn't really find one. So we'll get into it. And of course, you can see here, we go from the cover, and it drops us right in. Seeds of a Cult. We get a table for the name of the cult, what the cult is about, key member, perhaps the leader, and then let's say headquarters. That's the other thing I think. Besides the layout, I love some of these hyper gothic style fonts, but boy, they can be a little bit tough to get the reading out of here. So for the names, we can get stuff like the Eternal Dawn, ooh, Children of Knife Blood, kind of like that one, Unholy Necrobell, Embrace the Lost Chance, Temple of Dark Thrones. So all kinds of good stuff there. The cult is almost annihilated, desperate for aid. And then that goes, this is a D10. I do like that they put the which die you're rolling up there, so you don't have to kind of guess. Sometimes it can be tricky to figure out, especially if it's something like, here's 12 choices. Or is it supposed to be D12? Is it supposed to be 2D6? You know, let us know. Well, I suppose if it's 2D6, it would be 2 to 12. But you know what I mean. Take out the guesswork. And if it's a D67, please let me know. So it can go from being almost annihilated to in absolute turmoil, warring and destroying itself from within. In the middle, it must be, okay, in the middle are the more normalized. So it's enormous, official, legitimate, protected, or it's secret and unknown. It's a legend, lies, myth, and then things in between. The key member, we could get, let's see, it's the 3D10. I think we're supposed to roll the D10 3 times. So you can get a demented poet, an unseen caretaker, faced child, armed and legless, that kind of thing. For their headquarters, dim Schleisswig sewers among the oldest, most obscure Grift temples, and then just scanning down in the murky bog where Lake Onda merges with Targ Dungal. or at the spell-dead center of the Valley of the Unfortunate Undead. So we get a bunch of things there. In order to reach the Shimmering Fields, I'm guessing this is kind of their heaven analog, kind of like the Elysian Fields, maybe, Valhalla type thing. Roll a d20. First one is bake Bloot Day bread with bipedal's blood. I like the alliteration there. And there's a whole bunch of these. Build portals with the bones of 77 humans. Give all silver to the deep well of underworlds. Is that all your silver or all the silver? And then just scanning down a couple other of these. There's 20. Never do honest work during the time of day. Tie the legs with itching ropes and always walk slowly. Oof. Let's see. And then we get, so this is what they're sort of, maybe they're custom, I guess, in other words, the sort of thing they're doing, right? The holiest members or the ones who are most fervent are going to take on these particular, or take on these traits because they want to go to whatever their heaven is. And then as far as their hatreds, it's another d20. Could be an outsider's wise, condescending words. It could be the two-headed basilisks, brute and false prophets all, anyone carrying pitiful signs or sigils. Only the cults are worthy. That would be good. All these people carrying on signs and then them beating on each other because they hate each other's signs. Spineless deserters of filthy gutter scum, pale ones, earthbound and weird, wickheads, unpierced by spikes, those who care for children. Wow. Frederick Orr. K. Frederick says, I want the Mork Borg game screen just as a piece of art. It is awesome. Is you talking about like the GM's, the Mork Borg GM screen? I don't think I've seen it. Hey, Terrence says, Bjork Borg. Yeah. Yep. And Bjork made it, if you've seen, what is it, the Northman? If you've seen the Northman, Bjork has a little cameo in there, which is kind of cool. Now we get to the, I guess it's the table of contents. I can't even tell. What is that supposed to say up there? Oh, I guess that spells heretic, but man, the pink, the hot pink, the Gothic font, and the way it's overlaid, but not that it matters too much, but okay, it says heretic. So we got our seeds of the cult. Something called unheroic feats, which we'll get to next. Then something called sacrilegious songbird, shedding vicar, graves left wanting, bloat. I don't know if that's the explanation for bloat, black powder weapons for the rich and foolhardy, or maybe that's its own thing, or it's the same, I'm not sure. You are cursed, the merchant. Oh, nope. Okay, black powder weapons of the rich and foolhardy is its own thing. I see. They had an abbreviation, BWFTRAF, and they spelled it out. Whoops. Start going the wrong way. All right, Sepulchre of the Swamp Witch, the Bower, Borg Baitor, Rotten Nurse, and Nurse the Rot. And what's the asterisks mean? Items marked with an asterisk are written by Pelle Nielsen. I talked to the man. I should be able to pronounce his name. All art and graphic design are by Johan Noor, except where noted otherwise. Okay, then I got that. All right, so the asterisk ones are the ones written by Pelle. I probably won't read all of these. I'm definitely interested in the black powder weapons just to check it out, and we'll go through unheroic feats. We'll certainly go through, and then maybe we'll see how time allows in terms of these other things. You might need eye protection to read this book, Frederick says. Yep. You just might. And then Brian Smith says, I like how the inscrutable nature of the titles and style kind of makes the sensible side of my brain turn off. I ain't even thinking twice about the V word, just discovering what is on the page. Totally. I could totally say that. I think it works in many different ways. I certainly appreciate the design forwardness of it. You know, I just think that at some point I feel like I'd be copying and pasting this stuff into some other document that I could use. I'm like, okay, I need this, so I don't want to spend 10 minutes trying to figure out what it's trying to tell me. Like, I just want it. But yeah, they're beautiful. All right, so here, this section is called Unheroic Feats. When getting better, if not using an optional class, you may instead gain a feat. You may also gain an additional feat each time you get better, maximum of 3. Consult your GM on how feats are gained. Options include randomly, choosing, or through specific narrative achievements. Choosing feats allows you to make specific character builds, e.g. choosing party chef, inspired storyteller, and outback survivalist allows you to create a powerful support character that buffs your party whenever making camp. I'm always of two minds with the specific character builds, but I know folks love them, and I guess, to be honest, as a player, I don't hate them. I've done plenty of builds, though I think maybe the third edition, I don't know, second edition had all kinds of stuff too, but I just don't remember. I know there were builds and things, I'm sure, in second edition. I'm sure even in probably even in first edition with different things, but the focus on the build, to me, I always think of third edition, and afterwards. Fourth edition, you were kind of locked in, so didn't seem to be that much about builds. You could kind of optimize your class, but it was very narrowly focused. And of course, fifth edition has tons of builds. So you can roll a D66, or gain a feat as a narrative achievement, or obviously do something else. So let's see how many of those we'll read. Frederick says, I was told this has enough rules to play. You don't need anything else. Really? Not even the source book? Well, I think you're going to need some kind of core book, but maybe you don't need Mork Borg itself. You could attach this to anything. And then Brian Smith says, it's like not convenient at all. Like at the airport, when they ask for your ID, you pull out a Baroque oil-painted 3D portrait of yourself where you have to blur your eyes to see it instead of like a card. Yeah. Oh yeah, one of those. Do they still have those three-dimensional printed posters that you had to look at, and you look at a certain way, and then kind of have to get your eyes to relax, and then suddenly the inner pattern would appear? No, this is not super. This is pretty straightforward, right? And you're gonna roll some dice or use whatever method. It'd be interesting to use. The narrative achievement is interesting. It's one of those things that I like it, but then I'm like, well, I don't know if I like it, because I don't want, as the GM, to be telling people, or do people feel like they have to earn something through pleasing me or doing something that I want to see? I suppose I could come up with it if I was using this kind of list. And let's go through one of these. Okay, so the first one we have is Assassin's Death Blow. A firm grip, a sharp knife. That's all it takes for someone to disappear into the alleys of Galligan Beck. You've become adept at it over the years. So you could say that, okay, if you're able to get a couple of backstabs, and maybe we're not going to play even with a backstab mechanic, that you're just going to have to be in a position to backstab somebody. If you do that a couple of times, then, okay, you can get Assassin's Death Blow, and then the reward for that would be that, and I just read the description, and then the actual practical part is you're going to test strength to grapple an unaware foe and automatically crit with a one-handed bladed weapon. So if you do that a few times without this, then you get this, which then is your backstab. So I could see in this instance saying, okay, there is a clear thing you're learning here, a skill. So if you attempt, and you can choose whether to attempt and succeed or attempt and fail, but you have to get in a position, grab somebody from behind and shiv them crazy, prison style with your knife or some other implement, and then you do that a few times. I'm not sure what that number would be. Then you get it. Some of these other ones, they might be, let's read some more and we'll see. But the kind of narrative thing is like, I get it when it's obvious, it can kind of make sense, and you can pull that away from me having to say, oh, well, when I will decide when you get it, right? It's easy. This one's kind of obvious. Okay, do some backstabs and we'll figure out a number that seems reasonable. Maybe 3. Rules of 3 are always good. So 3 backstabs and you earn Assassin's Death Blow. Great. Ian says, always love thumbing through some Mork Borg. Yep, we are here to thumb. We got both our thumbs at the ready, Ian, and thanks for joining. So this other one's called Battle Hardened Death Speaker. You were called to battle, not for your prowess with blade and shield, not for your speed and might, but because the words you speak bring death to your enemies. You may wield powers while wearing medium armor. You may take this feat a second time to also include heavy armor. So this one would seem to be a spell casting ability. I'm thinking, if I'm remembering correctly, powers, spells. If you do this enough times, you earn the I'm not even doing. So the ability is that you can cast spells in medium armor, and then you can potentially get it again, cast spells in heavy armor, which is pretty powerful for a wizard type. So now the question would be, okay, well, what's the narrative achievement to earn that? Is it just casting spells in battle? I don't think so. I like that's kind of easy. That's in a way that's easy, especially if you get a good old surprise round there. One surprise round, you're going to get off a spell. You're probably going to be able to get off a spell if you have a spell saved in combat. It's not something that's super difficult. So what would you make to make suitable? Like getting a backstab is especially if you go kind of by the old rules. Say no, you have to be behind somebody. They have to be unaware of you, and you have to shiv them. Or this one, maybe even grapple and shiv. I don't know. That just is just the flavor of it. But that you have to do that. That's hard. I've played and I've played some thieves and things, and it's not easy to get in a situation where it's even possible, and then B, do everything you need to pull it off and then succeed on the attack. So that one, it's like, okay, that's actually a decently difficult or interesting challenge. You could go a lot of combats, a lot of sessions, unless you're going to go just start sneaking up on the populace in town and just shivving them in the dark in a wilderness or dungeon or some, that kind of context. It's decently, it can be challenging to get backstabs. It is not particularly challenging, I don't think, if you've got a good first level. If you end up with a first level combat spell, however you make that, getting into a fight and then having a chance to cast a spell, not super difficult. So we need to look at that. Frederick Ork mentioning easy D6. Frederick, send me a link to it or something, and I'll look into it, or I'll search on it offline. I think you posted something about it in another stream, and I'm interested in it, but it's hard for me to keep track of stuff. So email it to me or send it to me some ways, and I'll check into it. I'm all for hex engines. So that's one where, so going back to battle hardened death speakers, that's something that where finding the narrative thing's a little bit challenging. Maybe you got to be in melee and cast a spell, which might be more difficult, or you have to do something else. I'm not sure. Maybe actually that one makes sense because you're wielding powers wearing heavier armor. Maybe say, okay, you got to be up in the mix, and that would be maybe a suitable challenge for that type of feat. Because if you're a wizard, you tend to have low hit points. You can't cast in armor. So if you're gonna say I got to run up and be in front of that goblin and then cast and get away with it, maybe that would be the equivalent sort of narrative challenge. We also have Beastly Scholar. You study the beasts of the land, gutting them and spilling viscera to uncover the world's secrets. You may scry and see the future in an animal's innards. Gain an omen for every 10 hit points the beast had, but never more than your maximum omens. Usable once per animal type. The beast's innards may also provide enlightening information. Usable once per animal type. So does that mean like forever and ever? So if I do it to an animal, like say a fox or a wolf, is the type animal? And so then I've, the classic sort of animal, I don't know, whatever, goblinoid. You go through the list, giant kin, dragon, what are the other ones? There's like, I guess depending on which version of the system, or would that be just all dogs or just foxes? It seems a little bit, I guess it pushes you to keep finding weirder and other stuff to use, since you can't go back and repeat. Maybe once per animal type per week? I don't know. And then the beast's innards may also provide enlightening information. Okay, so I forget. I have to go back and look what omens mean. And this is where I think, Frederick, you're saying that they're saying you don't need any other rules than this. I think you do, because they're referencing things like powers and omens. And I would have to go back and look at the original book to recall. But certainly if you didn't have those rules, you're not getting them in here, what that stuff means. Obviously, if you're using this in a different system, then you'd have to translate that into whatever you want. The interesting thing here is, again, what would be the narrative achievement for doing this? Would it be some kind of one-on-one killing some kind of horrific beast? I'm not sure. I'm going to kind of scan the rest of these because I don't want to get caught up in just doing unheroic feats. But we've got Bloodied Knuckles, Blood Pact, Bloodthirsty Rage, Bone Crafter. You don't believe in letting things go to waste, including the fallen. You can craft equipment of strangely high quality using a number of humanoid corpses. A D6 weapon for 1 corpse's worth of bones. A shield for 5 corpses worth of bones. Light armor for 10 corpses worth. Oh, this one's I like that one a lot. And you could have a lot of fun coming up with what sort of thing, achievement would you have to achieve? Achievement that you would have to achieve. What sort of thing would you have to do in the narrative to earn Bone Crafter? That would be fun. We've got a Butcher Feet, Calm, Killer, Cat's Eyes, Dual Wielder, Fateful Visions, Iron Stomach, First Strike, Gutsy Strike, Harbinger of Misery, Herbalist Healer, Horrific Growth, Hyper Awareness, Immortal Memory, Inspired Storyteller, Leech, an Acquired Taste, or perhaps a disease, maybe a curse, an Eternal Thirst. And this is blood heals and sustains you. A pint heals D4 hit points. You may still eat regular food, but you suffer the effects of starvation after 1 day. Ooh, so you're basically a vampire. Likeable, living armor, lucky, mortal draw, negotiator, outback specialist, outback survivalist, party chef, piper, power word. My name is a killing word. Predatory sense, reckless attacker, shield breaker, skinner, vile blood. And that's it for, oh yeah, that was 66. What is, I'm kind of curious on power word. The powers that be whisper dark secrets in your ears wherever you walk. Their incessant chittering never gives you peace. You innately know 1 random sacred or unclean power. And additionally, when you have read a scroll, you may carve its esoteric glyphs into your flesh and wield it without the scroll. Ooh, that's gross and kind of cool. Every night, there's a 1 in 20 chance you accidentally wield a power in your sleep, with a 1 in 6 chance of fumbling. That's cool, but though that's a scary side effect. Ian says this is rife with content for any game to hand out to a player on an index card where you feel their character has earned it. Yes, Ian. I think the thing is that I was trying to maybe wrestling with is that concept of earning it, because one of the things I like about like your BX kind of style game is that I don't have to worry about them earning it, right? This is something that comes up a lot in 5th edition games with GMs and wondering like, when's the milestone? What's a good milestone? When's a good place for me to say the party has done something? And if you're playing a very focused campaign, it kind of makes sense. If you're playing escape from the Shire and get to Elrond at Rivendell, then you could see there are different stages. Oh, okay, you get to this point, then get to the next point, then get to the next, or you can see that line, you can hit those segments, say, okay, those are all milestones. And a more open-ended sandbox game gets more difficult, and I find it can be constraining to the party because they may want to switch gears and they feel like they can't because, then we're giving up on the milestone. So in a more open-ended game where I don't want to have to say, you earned it, but I want to set up something that makes sense and say, hey, you do enough backstabs, you earn the backstab feat. How would you lay? I would want to think about how to lay those out because I don't want to be the person I don't want to be the decider. I want to be able to just sit back and say, oh, great, you check that box that we all agreed upon. Great. Get your feet. Brian Smith says, you haven't lived unless you've asked your DM if you may carve these mystic runes into your character's flesh. Indeed. The Dave says, I like when progression is player facing, not GM facing. And then Ian says, example, the wizard found this weird old tome. It's not a spell book. It's something different. Maybe just give this power word feat once read. I've done this before to great results. I mean, sure, you could definitely tie them to magic items. That's a little bit different because in that sense, it's an object you've put in the world. And if they found it, they have unlocked it. So I don't think of that as earning it unless me as the meta GM, I'm looking at their loot and saying, ooh, I'm going to put this in for the wizard. Like there are different things. If I'm just establishing, oh, there's a book here and this ability's in that book and they find it, then hey, cool. Like that's all gravy. And I think that is a good way to transmit special abilities is, hey, you drink of the magic fountain and you put this as one of the, roll. I mean, you could have that, have the magic fountain roll, you drink, maybe there's one roll that kills you or do something terrible, and then some of these other effects. I mean, that's totally cool, but again, that's kind of up to the party to take that chance. I think where I want to try to fiddle with things, or I want to take out the part where the players are doing something in essence to please me to gain a reward, and that they sit there and going, ooh, I got to do something for the GM so that I've earned my milestone, and that's the part I want to get away with, or get away from as much as I can. Frederick Gorg mentions in Arcanum they had runes, tattoos of power, and mystic symbols. Yeah, I got to go back and read Arcanum. I never really had a chance to examine that. Oh, here we go. So this isn't an adventure. This is a bard class by Carl Druid called Sacrilegious Songbird. Nice art. Always the bringer of unwelcome sounds, your vocation as a bard left you destitute and disreputable, until the rueful day when a being of impious character made you the deal of a lifetime. Your soul may be screaming, but your throat sings sweetly, and your purse ever sweeter. A small price to pay. All right, you begin with some silver pieces and D2 omens. Are omens, is that maybe their kind of their divine magic? I'd have to read it again. Or those, I don't know. I have to go back and read it. If you remember in the chat, if somebody remembers how omens work from Mork Borg, just to clue me in so that I can remember, jog my memory. So first we have you roll a d6 table for the deal that was, or a deal that was struck, or where it was struck, I guess. So you could have been in an outhouse just outside Grift, hiding from guards in Galgenbeck, in a wasteland noble's bedchamber, dreaming in a disremembered ditch, in a Schleswig prison cell, minutes from freezing to death on the way to Allianz. So it's an interesting thing. There's no, the kind of the crossroads, the devil at the crossroads. They didn't go with that particular image because it's not there unless you want to put the ditch at a crossroads. This is very watered down apple cider for the working man. Abilities. Your amplified personality makes up for your soul bartered, for a soul bartered. Roll 3d6 plus 2 for your presence. A hard life lived has you set for an early grave. Roll 3d6 minus 2 for toughness. Roll a d6 on the weapons table and d3 on the armor table. You carry an aura of unnatural charm everywhere you go, capable of unsettling foes and calming friends. Spend a use of your daily powers to add or subtract d6 to any morale check. When you made your life and soul altering deal, you were gifted one of the following accursed instruments. So you could have the gut pipes of destiny, a hurdy-gurdy, a spinal husk, which is a drum, the devil's aquifer, which is a horn of a bubonic creature, a mouth-to-mouth organ, or the lute of the acute brute. Let's see. And so Dave says, if the players know how it works, they will try to systematically achieve all the tasks to get all the abilities. And then Ian says, they're concerned with player-facing powers. All of a sudden, balance comes into place alongside niche protection. It's their biggest problem with 5th edition. I think the thing is, you probably, Ian, in the case of something like feats, is you put a cap on the number you have, and you could have some feats being class oriented. For instance, that one that's basically a backstab. If you had a thief class that doesn't have a backstab, or I don't know, but they're already the sneaky class, you could give it to them. I think some of them are, it probably depends on the feat, because some of them are so, what's the word I'm looking for, are situational. Again, going by the fairly strict rules of backstab in at least BX and kind of similar games, it's hard to get a backstab. Most guards, if you're coming up to guards in a room, let's say in a dungeon, they're usually facing you with their backs essentially to the wall, nowhere to backstab them. So the situations where you're going to be able to get behind somebody, sneak up on them, all those, whatever those rolls are, if there are any, roll correctly. Then you have to make that attack that rolls correctly. So you have to make probably 2 or 3 rolls at least to kind of get there, right? There's the sort of surprise or the sneak roll, maybe the sneak roll and the surprise and whatever. It's like, okay, I gotta make at least 2 to 3 rolls to make this off. It's not easy. So I wouldn't necessarily be worried that the party's going to kind of go nuts on them. And if you only have 3, and if I'm the fighter and we have a thief, and let's say I have an existing backstab ability, the fighter, I'm guessing the fighter's probably not going to go and pick up that feat. And if I want, and of course what I could do is just say, well, that feat's just not available to you because I have thieves and I don't want to. I'm all for some kind of niche protection. Absolutely. So I think you can find ways to balance. I think, yeah, if you give people unlimited feats and unlimited whatever, and I think it's also how you write the feats. If they are very situational and they have a very narrow use case and it's not something you can kind of exploit, then it becomes the party figuring out like, ooh, I have this great thing, but I need to get them in a certain position to do that thing, which means it's both a limit on doing it, and it also means that if I want to, I have to try, if I could do something like, oh, I can zap them with electricity, but they have to be standing in water, then I'm going to try to think of clever ways to get them standing in water. And a lot of times it's just not going to be it's not going to happen very well. Something like that, right? I mean, that's maybe even a poor example because I'm sure they're going to start carrying around barrels of water and just dumping them everywhere. But I think I see the point. But I can definitely see, Ian, how that can get out of hand if not handled with some care. And then Frederick says, yes, the power in Mork Borg is unbalanced, but not in the player's favor. Yep, that's pretty true. So we have these, let's see, of these instruments, which I read out earlier, looks like they all just have descriptors, except for the spinal husk, which says that when anyone hits this drum made from a Hellions shell, you roll 2d6. On a 6+, everyone except you tests agility or falls prone. On an 11, you choose D4 creatures that can hear your drumming. Their spines break like twigs. Ow. But you can't use the drum again that day. On a 12, your ears won't stop ringing. You are deaf for the next 24 hours. But it also doubles as a shield. And Frederick reminds us that in Mork Borg, 4 to 7 sessions is the sweet spot the campaign is designed to end. Is that the sweet spot? I don't remember. I remember I talked to the guys about it, the authors, and I don't remember. I'd have to go back and listen to what they said. I don't remember them mentioning a specific sweet spot, but I do remember that you're rolling for basically when the end of days is coming, and there's a good chance it's coming rather soon. But I don't know, Frederick, do you have experience, or are you in the community? Is that what people say who've played a bunch of Mork Borg? Is that the 4 to 7 sessions is kind of where you want to be in terms of the right length? There's another class called Shedding Vicar by Cameron James. Armor is weak, clothing a sin, and skin an abhorrent vanity. King Sigfum's hubris needs to be stripped from the lands, from our bodies, as skin is shed and scabs peeled. The day when the wounds don't heal is the beginning, and we must seek absolution. Why are they interesting that I'm guessing this, I was going to stumble on saying, oh, that must be a typo, but I'm thinking that's looking at it as it's done purposefully, getting rid of the spaces. We must seek absolution. The first peel is always the worst, but remember, at the end of pain lies the promise of true vindication. We begin with some silver and some omens. Your first peel was the cult leader. Oh, I see. So your first peel, you were first peeled by, there's one, you're rolling D6 for who, and then what and why. So you could have been peeled by a cult leader from fingernail to armpit for assault, by an abusive parent from ear to ear over closed eyes for coveting. Yeesh. That's pretty gross. A grift trader from heel to buttocks for evasion and lies, so on and so forth. Let's see. Frederick says they ran it a couple of times last year. Seemed 4 to 7 sessions of 3-hour play was a sweet spot. You don't want to go over 10 sessions. Interesting. What happens after 10 sessions, Frederick? What goes bad in your estimation? Abilities, covered in wounds and on the edge of death, you roll, okay, so you just basically, you roll 3d6 minus 2 for agility, but you are monstrously unnerving, so you roll 3d6 plus 2 for presence. And then you roll a d8 from the weapons. You can never wear armor or coverings. Pain is either a stranger or your constant companion. Regardless, you are not bothered by any amount of it. You begin with some unclean scrolls and then one of these blessings. Skin whip. Once daily, you may pull a thread of skin from the top of your head to an extremity. It is elastic and tough and may be used as, for example, D10 feet of rope or a whip. Wow, that's kind of gross, but kind of cool. Okay, Frederick says let's see, the players have too much and are too powerful and the game becomes lagged down. I see. Blood Writ Esoterica, a fair barter, Blood Eagle, Holy Molting, or Blood Trail. So you get one of those goodies. And that's it. Okay. Let's see. We read Skin Whip. What is Blood Eagle? Your broken back births a black-eyed, viscera-covered winged demon who seeks eyes to feast upon. Each time the Blood Eagle attacks a target, you roll a d6, plucking d2 eyes from the target on a 4 to 6. A 1 to 3 means the hawk is captured. Try again next round. A second 1 to 3 means the hawk is killed and cannot be summoned again. I'm guessing cannot be summoned again is not forever, I would think. And then finally, I'll read Blood Trail. The scent of blood always finds you. and you were able to track another shedding vicar or any wounded creature who has passed by within the past week. Oh, that's really handy dandy. Brian Smith says, this is what I say after a bad sunburn at the beach. Yeah, pretty bad. This is called Graves Left Wanting. So I think this is an adventure. This says it's okay. So there's a little, it's got a little stamp here. Mork Borg cult approved content. How are we on time? Oh, we're doing pretty well. Not too shabby. All right. So this one is this is indeed an adventure. What was it called? Graves Left Wanting. An immense cemetery, older and greater than memory. Gravin Tosk sits in Sarkash like a festering scab. To the east, the Shadow King's manse looms always, impossibly equidistant. Although abandoned since the palace's ruination, bodies somehow keep finding their way inside. All the while, living and unliving attempt to claw their way out. All right, that's a cool, flairful bit of intro. A bit of metanoia, this adventure is intended as a starting point of your campaign, a one-shot, or a post-TPK adventure. Due to its massive size and unsettling nature, even PCs familiar with other parts of the cemetery are oblivious to this adventure's locales. Have the players awaken in the plague pit in coffins under suffocating earth, or wherever you deem appropriate. There isn't a defined ending or clear escape path. Once the Undertaker's hut is explored, the players should plan a potential getaway or be hopelessly lost. Add a more obvious exit or method of escape if you feel that would end their misery. It won't. All right. So this kind of seems like an open-ended sort of sandbox. Since the unliving and living are always attempting to claw out, if you had a TPK, this is a nice place to reset things and have them come out, wake up in those coffins. Of course, you could just start the campaign with them waking up in the coffins, which is a fairly classic fantasy trope in terms of role-playing games. Not necessarily in a coffin, but it's akin to the, you're prisoners and you wake up in cells kind of thing. Here we have a map of the graveyard. It is not to scale. Places may not be where they appear. All right. Nice. So it's just to give us a rough idea, since anything could be anywhere. When traveling the graveyard, you roll a d4. On a 1, you're at the strangly tree. Let's see. On a 2, you're at the plague pit. On a 3, you're at the organ fountain. And at 4, you're at the mouse's vomitorium. I always loved the word vomitorium. Now, my guess is that maybe if you take these underground tunnels here, you can actually, specify where you're going. But if you're traveling overland just through the graveyard itself, you could just end up in any of these spots. That's kind of definitely a cool unsettling effect. Notice that there is no number for the Undertaker's hut. So we know the players are supposed to get here by the end and explore it, but there's no clear way to get there. We'll have to see how one will get to the Undertaker's hut. Unless there's, I don't see, it's not connected by any of these passages. We'll just have to see. I like that there's a roach herder's lair. That's always good. The graveyard. Walking purposefully is hard in the fog. Winding paths seem bent on leading fools astray. Traveling between places takes 15 minutes, and then you roll for a random encounter each time. Once all 4 locations are visited, the next path leads to the Undertaker's hut. The roach herder knows which way to go. Okay, so you have to kind of go around all 4 of them to unlock the Undertaker's hut. I would imagine that this second bit is saying that if you happen to be able to deal with the roach herder, that you could potentially get to the Undertaker's hut without doing that. That would be my guess. Gork says the classic module, the Lich Way, plays well with Mork Borg, as does Deathfrost Doom. I have Deathfrost Doom somewhere. I need to kind of probably read that on the channel and read that. I don't know the Lich Way, but I can check it out. So you're walking the trails. You roll a d4 to see where we go. We saw that from the map. What you know about Gravin Tosk, you can roll for each PC. So we get some. Each one can be given a little bit of a different piece of information. And some of them are true, some of them are false, and some of them are unknown. So this looks like there's, let's see, 2 false, 2 maybes, 2 trues. It's a good mix. Random encounters you could get. Let's see, you could run into rotted skeletons, a widow wraith, unbred mutts, half-billed ravens, or hungry zombies. Or potentially some sensory strangeness. And the sensory strangeness is an additional table. Could be muffled sounds of scratching. Is everyone walking backwards? A wind chills the spine yet makes you sweat. That cherub just looked at you. The sudden smell of wet dog. Well, that might not be so strange since there are unbred mutts around. Let's see. Here we have the widow wraith. We get that's nice. We get a little stats for each one. So we get for the widow wraith, a hungry zombie, rotten skeleton, unbred mutt, and half-billed raven. So we get all the little stats there on board. That's cool. I like that. All right, in the plague pit, we get a repugnant smell, illuminated by moonlight the color of sour milk, encircled by soupy fog whose tendrils occasionally creep down. And then bullets, I guess, are for stuff that's in there. So that was kind of our atmospherics, right? That kind of descriptive element. Then there are corpses at different stages of decay that are in there. Any direction you go into the graveyard, or if you go west, there's that. To the west, there's also that tunnel to Erhard's tomb. So you can presumably you can climb out and you're in the graveyard, or you can take that tunnel. And then you can loot bodies, which you would roll. Yeah, loot bodies into a D6 table that you would roll twice, and you can be some silver, a pouch, some rope, that kind of stuff. Erhard's tomb. Stale, warm air, dark, floor covered in drifting fog. There's a sealed standing sarcophagus flanked by 2 unlit torches. To the north, there's a narrow crawl space to the catacomb corridor. To the east leads you to the plague pit, or you can also go south to the colander room. You open the sarcophagus. It's a strength check, reduced by 2 for each assistant. Failure means everyone involved takes D4 damage as the lid falls down. I guess it crushes your fingers. Inside, a man's odorless corpse in near perfect condition, wearing fine silk clothes. The skin is waxy, malleable like dough, and very flammable. Digging into the body reveals an iron skeleton, a fist-sized ruby inside the rib cage. Ooh. So that's it for Erhard's tomb. Kind of interesting. No encounter. So none of those skeletons, or none of those, I say none of the skeletons. The skeleton inside the sarcophagus or the odorless corpse does not rise up to attack you. The colander room is half lit by moonbeams piercing minuscule holes in stone and dirt. Long worms of mist droop and drip from the ceiling, the sound of chattering teeth. This is a circular chamber with a ceiling pierced by thousands of tiny holes. 3 fog-bound skeletons wrapped in foggy coils sit at a stone table arguing. On the table is a locked metal strongbox. North leads you back to Erhard's tomb. East is an earth tunnel to Mouse's vomitorium. I guess this is an effect. Unheard voices. The fog-bound skeletons speak with elongated tongues of mist, soundless save the unmistakable clatter of teeth against tooth. One waves an elaborate key-like dagger in a bony hand. And we get some stats for the fog-bound skeleton. The object is called the skeleton unkey. Attempting to grab the dagger or strongbox makes the skeletons hostile. The dagger is usable as a key that opens any lock. Things unlocked this way lead to unexpected, rarely convenient places. Interesting. Frederick says that Mork board plays well in Thieves' World. I can see that. And then if you unlock the strongbox with the unkey, you roll a die to see what's going on. If you open it by some other means, aka pick the lock or smash it, it gains 200 silver coins. What happens if one of the options is it reveals a PC's beating heart? Does that mean that the PC's beating heart is outside the body? Is that insta death for that PC? As they all of a sudden go, oh, my heart, and they keel over, and you look inside, and there's the beating heart. Full of flowing cold water is another interesting one. I think I'd almost rather have the 200 silver coins. On to Mouse's vomitorium. Acid's sour smell permeates the air, illuminated by sickly glowing puddles of green and yellow gall, the sound of a boiling pot. So notice they are giving us a lot of the senses in terms of the description. They're not giving us boxed text, but you get a smell of acid, a sickly glow of illumination, green and yellow gall, and then the sound of a boiling pot. So they've given you some sense, some sounds, some sights. Right? They've pretty much hit it all. Ornate stone-walled chamber, flagstone floor eroded by pools of gall. 2 rows of columns hold the chamber's buckling ceiling. There's a marble coffin on a raised dais that's leaking yellow gall from a bubbling lid. Okay, so the coffin is leaking yellow gall from the lid, which is bubbling. Maybe there's like it's like when a pot is boiling and the lid is kind of bouncing around. I wonder if that's what it is, or is the lid literally like some kind of weird part solid, part liquid that's bubbling? Or is it maybe just kind of bubbles popping out of the sides? It's not sealed. I don't know. I guess you just make it up and you decide how that actually is. Stone doors and staircase to the surface are on the north. The west, there's a collapsed wall which leads to or separates it, I guess, from the calendar room. The noblewoman and the witch. The legendary bard made noble Fella Mouse was cursed by a bog hag after neglecting to fulfill her part of a long-forgotten occult enterprise. The sour stomach broth corrodes flesh, but not bone, in minutes. Where is that sour stomach broth coming from? That's from the boiling pot, I guess. So if you open the coffin, the dais is covered in flowing gall. Walking up to the coffin surely results in burnt flesh and ruined shoes. Floating in the wicked liquid are Mouse's bones and the heresy-inscribed curse organ, and Mouse's favorite instrument. That's called the roseate baritona. It's desecrated by the bog hag. And there's a corrupted horn of roses, a human-sized ivory horn bedecked with Mouse's family skulls and bound in magical entrails. When blown, it spews a noise that forces listeners to test toughness or vomit acid, taking d6 damage. Blower beware. Ooh. So the one thing I'm not certain of here is, what is the sour stomach broth? So the coffin is floating in the wicked liquid, which I'm guessing is the yellow gall. No. So the dais is covered in the gall, which is boiling out of the coffin. And then in the coffin is full of the liquid that I guess is just continually just coming out. And there are the bones, the instrument. I don't know, what's the sour stomach broth? Is that the gall? Or is that something else? I don't know. It must be. I'm guessing it must be that. But I'm not sure. Catacomb corridor, dark and deadly quiet, balmy and unventilated. This goes north to south. There are toothless skeletons that rest in dusty niches along the wall. 3 large urns on the floor. There's a lamp thrown on the ground. North goes to the roach herder's lair. East into a crawl space to Earhart's tomb through a broken niche wall. And then there's also a staircase to Origin Fountain. If you open an urn, you can roll a d4 to see what you find. There's a twice grown corpse fly. Where is that? I guess maybe it's just there. It doesn't say specifically. So maybe that's just sitting there. It would have been nice to know, oh, hey, there's a twice grown corpse fly here. But it's just, never mind. It's part of if you open an urn. Okay, so on number 3, if you open the urn, you see a decomposing corpse, and that's where the twice grown corpse fly bursts out of the soft skull looking for food. Ooh, a soft skull. Yuck. So it's probably referring back to that yellow gall that's like Monster Energy drink. Yeah, pretty much. The Origin Fountain, the smell of stagnant water, whispers of laughing children. It's a grand rectangular fountain decorated in ancient cherubs vomit mist. 2 statues at the fountain's crest are holding a stone jar. There's a bridge of protruding pillars that leads across the mist to a stone door. To the north is a door and steps to the catacomb corridor. Reaching the door is an agility test, or you slip on a pillar falling into the mist. The cherubs laugh. Moments later, the PC wakes in the catacomb corridor, toothless and aged, head spinning with a lifetime of memories not quite their own. In this withered body, their abilities are 1 lower than they remember. Wow. Brian Smith says, dang, Mork Borg, why you gotta be so gross? Yeah, I think that's definitely part of the aesthetic. Here's another swig of watered down cider. And then there's a jar, the jar. To reach it, you got to test agility or fall into the mist. Contains nostalgia gruel, enough to restore 2 people to their primes and by increasing all abilities +1. But does it take away your toothlessness? I might have you stay toothless. Don't fall into the mist is basically what you want to do. All right. I can feel a cough coming on here. Hold on a second. All right. The roach herder's lair. Hot and humid, rancid sweats, stink, clings to the nostrils, sound of rushing water from the north. Covered in debris and things stolen from nameless graves and tombs. There's an occupied throne of trash that would be valuable. Roaches, meaty and otherwise, sit and scurry on the crap-stained floor. North, there's an archway and tunnel to the Shadow King's sewer. West, there's a tunnel to the catacomb corridor. The roach herder, there's again a nice little picture. And there, he's got a special. You have to test toughness or become infected. The recluse of refuse. The recluse of refuse. The roach herder, a grave robber made hermit, sits on his throne, roach whip in grubby hand. After being unable to escape the cursed graveyard, his party members eventually died, leaving him terribly alone. Now he breeds cockroaches, hoping to hatch one big enough to fly him back to the city he once rejected. That's a good plan. We'll see how that works out. Brian Smith says, just makes you nostalgic for when you had teeth. Makes sense why it's gruel if you got no chompers. Yep. In that case, gruel is definitely a good thing for the toothless. Recruiting the Roach King. His breeding endeavors so far without triumph, the roach herder is keen to attach himself to the party, hoping they'll secure his escape. An insecure liar and untrustworthy narcissist who values his own skin above all else. The roach herder offers to guide them to the Undertaker shack, which it seems like he can do. They do say that he actually does know the way, so presumably can. The Shadow King's sewer. The air carries petrichor as ice-cold droplets splash warm stone. Words are drowned by pitch-black water deafeningly crashing past. Stone tunnel amputated by a river of frothing and rushing water heading north and west. North is nothing but cold, hard rock. South, the tunnel and archway to the roach herder's lair. Above is a hatch and rope to the strangly tree someone standing on another shoulder could reach. The currents are strong. Anyone touching the water must test strength or be swept away. They drown before long. Ouch. So don't even touch the water. I mean, that the way that's written suggests that even should you put your pinky finger in the water, just a toe, you got to make a strength check or you're taken away. So don't do it. Rotten coffins or makeshift rafts would surely be crushed before reaching the ocean. All right, so basically this is not a means of escape. It is a means of death. That's pretty much what we're being told. And then there's the strangly tree. A wind blows through wheezing branches, chilling the air and carrying decay's smell far away. A huge tree, long since leafless, branches groaning from a dozen hanging bodies' weight. Nooses sway excitedly in the wind. Above is a wooden door just big enough to crawl through, firmly planted at the top of a rickety plank ladder. Any direction, you're in the graveyard. If you go below, you'd go down to the Shadow King's sewer. If you go into the tree, going through the door reveals the tree is hollow. A long rope attached far above, leads somewhere far below. Climbing the rope weighs it down, causing the nooses outside to pull on their corpses with every movement. A macabre marionette show. It doesn't actually say where that goes. So that's hatch and rope inside the tree, or maybe this is going, oh, I see. So maybe it's the rope inside the tree leads down to the sewer. So if you're come out of the sewer, you use that rope, you come up into the inside of the tree. If you're coming through the graveyard, you'd see the stuff on the outside of the tree. Brian Smith says an excited noose is very successfully unnerving. Yeah, it's certain that definitely gets the creepy vibe. Also, as you're climbing up the ropes, the way the bodies would dance, it'd be a really cool encounter if your party was outside the strangly tree and something was climbing up the rope on the inside. Of course, if they haven't been there before, they wouldn't know it, but they would see the corpses dancing around. Yeah, creepy. All right, finally, the Undertaker's hut. The intermingled smell of wet lumber and rotting flesh. Light flees through the cracks of a closed window shutter. Muffled voices are audible inside. Got a stone hut with a thatched roof and walls covered in creeping vines. Outside, piles of logs, a dozen barrels, and half as many freshly made coffins. A robed woman's body in an open grave. Beside her, a worn shovel. Behind the hut is a small garden that's overgrown. And there looks like there are 3 people in here. Stein, Benzin, and Arga. The deadened. The undertaker dug graves and made coffins. She buried corpses and left them to rot. Some refused to do so quietly. Some she silenced herself. Some died, some didn't. The deadened are living, breathing people like the PCs who, by chance or fate, found themselves alive. They made it to the hut, proceeding to confront the undertaker in order to escape. She refused to cooperate, so they killed her. Unable to leave, they've decided to stick around. And then when we get there, or the PCs get there, the deadened are inside the hut, assigning chores and arguing about first watch. They're friendly enough and invite the PCs to join them in settling down. Krister says, you're doing a Swedish RPG today. I am, Krister. Haven't seen you for a while. I don't know if you've just been in here and quiet or just been busy, but glad to see you join. Yeah, we're doing wrapping up, I think. Well, we'll see, maybe go a little bit further, but yeah, we're doing Mork Borg Cult Heretic. We're just finishing up the Graves Left Wanting adventure. So that's, again, you just meet some other adventurers who have just given up and decided to just do what they can do to make life bearable in the graveyard. And I suppose that could be the end of this. We're a one-shot. But here we have maybe a postscript or a little twist. Well, it's literally called A Twist of Fate. At some point during the deadened encounter, the air grows suddenly chill, and the ever-present flies' buzzing seems strangely distant. Neck hairs stand on the edge of an impossible abyss as the fog swirls around the uncovered grave. The Ubertaker. Rising, floating a few feet above the ground, is the Undertaker's body. The face is gaunt, eyes sunken and filled with a mad purple fire. Rune-covered robes swirl around grim feet, the shovel a fiery polearm of doom. Upon festering, the Undertaker's body and vengeful mind hosted a being both lesser and greater than human, a servant of a faraway underworld, an Ubertaker. This creature is concerned with one thing, to bring people back below dirt. And then we get some stats for the Ubertaker. And each round they take a random action. It could be Scourge Take You. Creatures in melee range take a d4 damage. Could be Behold the Power. Its next attack deals max damage. Could be No Reproach. Appears next to a random creature and swings the shovel. Or Rest is Now, as skeletal hands pull a creature into the ground. And you, let's see, you fall prone and you have to make a strength check, or you take d8 damage. Oh, Brian Smith, Tombstone Piledriver time. Where's where's Paul Bearer? Krister, sorry you missed the start, but you can go back at the end and catch up. When targeted by healing powers, the Ubertaker loses rather than recovers hit points. Upon destruction, the torn robes can be rolled up and used as an unclean scroll of Behold the Power. That's cool. Oh, and that's it. I think that is it. So a couple interesting things about this adventure. So we get a nice, I like the layout. Look, design-wise, it looks cool. But I think in terms of if we drill down past just the look and feel of it to what each area gives us, each area is basically a room, though I guess mostly rooms with one tunnel or a couple of tunnels. And you get not box text to read verbatim, but you definitely get some atmospheric descriptive text that you can take and do what you will. I like the sort of bullet text of, hey, these are important things, with things even more important that are bolded. I think it's enough detail to run the rooms. I always wonder sometimes about what the best order for things in. Like, should I put these people's names before the thing? Because, how I read that doesn't really matter in this case. But I do like the layout. It's a very definitely seems to be a one shot or one session. I mean, if you're running kind of a 3-hour session, I feel like you could pretty much get through all of those. There's not a particular chance. You can't really get too lost, because if you're running in the graveyard, you're going to, on the surface, you're going to hit all those rooms, ping, pang, ping, pong, pong, and then you get to the Undertaker's hut. So 5 wanderings through the foggy graveyard surface is going to get you to all the locations, which is kind of clever. You can't do that with everything, but in this case, it's sort of clever. Or you could run through them underground, and then you probably run into the roach herder, in which case, theoretically, you can make a deal. They're not going to be wanting to fight. They're going to be wanting to tag along with you, and they could probably even pitch the Undertaker's hut to kind of get you to take them with you. Frederick says a nice con game idea. Yeah, I think it could definitely. Oh, Krister, MÖRK BORG. MÖRK BORG. I didn't even try. I just was saying Mork Borg, but I know it's like MÖRK BORG. MÖRK BORG. A MÖRK BORG. Yeah, I don't. Not good at that. All right, so where are we on time? So it's basically I'm at time. I'm just going to scan through to give you guys a taste of these other things that are happening. This is a bloat adventure written by Greg Saunders with a map by Dyson Logos. Looks like we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rings. Krister says Swedish Chef does RPG. Yeah, pretty much. MÖRK BORG. Yeah. And then we get a table for You Are Cursed. So if you get a curse, this is definitely you could pull out and use whenever you want. You get a D20 of what now, basically what you have to do to get uncursed. They say one can help you. Who is it? Oh, I like that. That's clever. So yeah, there's who can help me? And then I guess what's the price for that person to help me? And then how do you get rid of it? Or wait a minute. Oh, I see. The what now is what must you do to fulfill the curse? I got you. So the first table is what is the curse doing you to do? The second table is someone can help you. Someone, just one, right? They say one can help. Who? So the one person can help you or one creature. Who is that? And then what do you have to pay them to help you? And then what are they going to tell you to do? So that's nice because you get the whole MÖRK BORG. All right. Yep, a Dark Castle. I did get that from the interview. But thanks, Krister. Yep, I do remember that it's Dark Castle. MÖRK BORG. MÖRK BORG. Okay. MÖRK BORG. Cool. Then we get The Merchant, A Mysterious Peddler by Johnny Carhat. Or Carhat. Looks like this is just an NPC. What is it? Okay, I guess they can sell things, and maybe depending on where you are, they get different stuff. So you get their wares. Yeah, that must be that. I'm guessing if you meet them in different areas, they'll have different stuff. Here's the black powder weapons for the rich and foolhardy. Ammunition, so you can have powder shots, basilic shots, or cannon shots, and they cost different amounts. These are expensive, exotic, and very loud. These strange weapons could hail from a number of infernal planes. Most black powder weapons are characterized by the following traits. You gotta roll presence to hit, ignores armor. Most fire once they need reloading, which takes D6 plus 2 rounds unless stated otherwise. You cannot reload with an enemy within melee, and then they're loud. Lesser creatures might roll morale when a shot is fired. Anything more intelligent will notice and investigate. And you get a pistolet, or pistolet, culverin, an arquebus, a dragon, a basilic gun, a blunderbuss, a heavy arquebus, a pepperbox, pistolet, a black powder bomb, ribaldequin, maybe, or ribaldequin, and then finally a cannon. Good stuff. Very concise. And then we have another scenario called Sepulcher of the Swamp Witch by Christian Solon. I'm just going to go through here, but you get let's see. So you get some rumors. There's what is it? Serpent drug cult. The Sepulcher that's got, looks like 11 rooms. As usual, lots of great art. And we get, what is this? Bourge Belor. Oh, this is a creature, so we get a monster. Grub-like centipedal arthropods called Betor by the ignorant and crude. The typical specimen grows to roughly 2 meters long from a steady diet of stone, mortar, and wood. Its drill-like mandibles drip with an acidic venom, reducing buildings and flesh alike to a crimson sludge. Crimson sludge. A hungry bitor, or biter, gladly devours creatures and silver. This extremely territorial pest dwells in caves, cracks, and holes and ruthlessly attacks anyone getting too close. Rarely spotted until it's already too late. Frederick says they always recommend adding matchlock guns. So much can and will go wrong. Yeah, I mean, I imagine with misfires and things like that, depending on how you have it set up, it can be lots of fun. I let my my party, they use hand crossbows, which I have in my game, and they usually it's just good for your essentially your first shot. You know, they get one shot to be in combat, and then it's I don't even have them roll dice to reload, but it takes a round. And I think that they find that for the most part, unless they're just stuck of options, firing every other round is just too inefficient. So they kind of usually drop it or stow it after that first fire. We have a rotten nurse. Is this another NPC? Let's see, what is it? I guess it's something. It seems like it's all flavor text, but that's cool. And then we have Nurse the Rot, which seems like it's a location. Oh yeah, here's a very funky map. Where do you get in? Where's room 1? Oh, I don't know where you get in, because it seems like it's a perfect circle. My inner light is evil spark illuminating all in the dark. Oh wait, hold on. My inner light is evil spark illuminating all in dark. Tithe unto me your withered all. When I die, you within my pall, my spark. In you shall be a flame. All souls by this shall be defamed, seeing what shadows had concealed. The rusty nail to all reveals other cults shall find no reprieve from what took one night to believe. And that's the end. Frederick Works says affix bayonets and charge. Yep, pretty much. All right, so that was Mork Borg. Oh, my poor cat keeps like wheezing away over here. Mork Borg Cult Heretic. I like it. I think if you like Mork Borg, if you have Mork Borg, it seems kind of a no-brainer to at least check this one out. In terms of, let's see, want to get back to the content here. We've got, a couple of classes, or at least one class. Shedding Vicar, was that, I think that might have also, yeah, those are 2 classes. A table for cults, some feats, a table for curses, NPC, interesting NPC about merchants. You get some black powder weapons. Get one, it looks like 2 or 3 adventures. A monster, an NPC, or just some kind of myth or tale. And then also, I'm guessing that I think the Rotten Nurse and Nurse the Rot are both related, but it looks like a location, potentially a dungeon type location, and that. So good stuff. It is, what is it? It's like 60 some odd pages long. I'm not sure how much it runs for on drive-through, but of course, I mean, you can see like the other Mork Borg stuff, it's beautiful in terms of the design. If you just like it for the artistry of it, it is beautiful. I didn't find it that difficult to read. I was at the beginning, I was kind of talking about, well, you know, sometimes it gets to the point where I have trouble finding it. But other than maybe actually the first couple pages are probably the hardest with the mixture of fonts and everything. But then once getting into the mostly actual content, on pretty much all of it, I didn't have trouble getting through it. I think if I had this and I wanted to flip and use something from it, I could do that pretty easily. So I think a good job there in keeping that Mork Borg style, but the usability isn't sacrificed too much. I thought the layout of, well, the one we went through in particular, which was Graves Left Wanting, was well done, gave me everything I needed to run. And it seems like it'll be a fun kind of one shot. I could definitely see doing it out of a TPK. The only thing maybe I would say, and it's not really a problem, but you have to figure out, if you're running it as a one shot, it's fine, just run it. And then you fight the Uber taker, and then you're done. If you were doing this out of, say, a TPK or a campaign starter, I mean, they do tell you up front, but there's not really any wisdom given as to, okay, now you've dealt with the Uber taker, now what? And that might be the one thing that would be interesting, or maybe good you have to keep in mind. I have to figure out, okay, for all accounts, you can't get out. Would defeat the Uber taker open up some sort of portal to come out? Like what would be the thing? Or is there something else that's hidden in there they need to find to come out? You know, how do I do this? So you just want to figure that out, because it has to be something that's obviously attainable for the party, but then it has to make sense why none of those other people found it. Like the Deadens didn't find it, and then the Roach Rancher or whatever didn't find it. So it has to be something at least hidden, put away somewhere, maybe in one of those rooms. Has one of those rooms that has kind of stuff trapped that may be deep under there. There might be some opportunities to put the thing that's going to help you get out. I don't know. We probably need to figure that out. But otherwise, really, really cool stuff. Tomorrow, I believe I will be talking to Chris McDowell, interview with him. I will double check with him and make sure it's still on, but it should be on. So check in tomorrow's stream. I'm going to try to get it scheduled this afternoon, get my thumbnail going and get all that up there. But that we'll be talking about, I guess, all things Chris McDowell, Into the Odd, all that great stuff. In fact, my original plan was to talk about Into the Odd, the revised version. That excuse me, that oh boy. I was going to, part of the reason why I was running late today was because I was getting prepped to run or go through Into the Odd, the revised edition, in advance of tomorrow. But I was smart enough to look at, so Free League Press sent it to me, and I was clever enough to go back and say, wait a minute, I know that they will sometimes send stuff and then there's an embargo, where they don't want to have reviews and stuff come out, and the embargo is still on. So I can't cover that as of yet, but probably I think the embargo's out in August. And the reason why I'm trying to honor the embargoes, they have as I'm stuttering, the way they've set up is they'll say, hey, you can do actual plays and things like that beforehand, but don't do a review until afterwards. But I kind of feel like with the way I'm going through it, it's not really an actual play. It's not exactly a review, but I am going through the book. So I figure I don't know if there's a gray area, but I'm just going to, they're very kind to help me out and send me stuff. So I want to make sure that I'm not doing anything to run afoul of the rules they even set up, which is super nice. So I'm sitting on that revised edition book. And I didn't even notice that because they send me a link through drive-through to download it, and that product page for like the general public doesn't even exist yet. So I couldn't even send anywhere to buy it yet. So that'll probably happen in August. But tomorrow, should be Chris McDowell, and we'll talk Into the Odd and beyond. But this was Mork Borg, Heretic. Cool art as usual. If you could give a thumbs up on your way out, that'd be awesome. If you find yourself in here and you're not subscribed and you feel like subscribing, that would also be awesome. Check back in tomorrow for the Chris McDowell interview. And of course, if you're watching or listening to this later, then just go back to the channel and search for the Chris McDowell interview. And hopefully, if things stay true, that will be up. So other than that, though, have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, and I'll talk to you later. Bye, everybody.